Hi, okay. Um, let's talk about sessions. So session is really important. And let me first talk about why it is used and where it is used. So let's say that you have some information that you want to make available on all of the pages in your web application, in your site. And um, that's basically where you use session. If you want to pass one information from one page, for example, from exercise1.exercise.php to exercise2.php, or you want to make that data available on all of the other pages, you can use session. Session is just basically a variable, and that information gets stored in your local computer, and that information can be accessible for all of the other pages in your web application. So let's first talk about why you may want to do that. For example, let's say you logged in on one page and you want to make sure that all the other pages know that you're logged in. Maybe what you do is you create a session. You store something in the session. Maybe you store that as session, for example, logged in, and once you check the database, and if the user information validates, then maybe you set session logged in as true. Okay, or maybe you store the logged in user's email address and the name, because you don't want to fetch that information from the database every time. You just want to make that information available for all of the pages. Okay, let's say another example is, let's say you submitted some information and it went to process.php, where it handled all of the form information, and process.php wants to return some information back to exercise.php. So how could process.php send information back to exercise.php? Maybe it has error messages or success messages, whatever. The way that process.php would send information back to exercise is one way you can do it is using session. Okay, so let's just go through some example. Okay, so here I have exercise.php and I have process.php, where I handle different post information. So let's save this back. Let's turn this back to post. I'm sending the email and the password. So let's just do some very simple validation. So in the process.php, we're just going to check if post email is not empty. So we're going to have you do more validation. Maybe you could use string length function or empty function. Okay, if that is okay, so if, and we'll say if password is not empty. Okay, so if that is not empty, and if this is not empty, then we'll say let's say came here, and if they came over here, let's say echo email and password cannot be empty. Okay, so let's do that. Okay, and let's see how this works. So I put an empty field and it says that email and password cannot be empty. I can go back, put some information, and it says came here. Okay, so what I want to do is this error message, I actually want to pass it to exercise.php. Okay, so the way that I would do it is I would say, hey, I need to store some stuff in session. So the way that you do it is there's a PHP function called session start, and you say I'm going to be using some session variable. And let's say in the session variable, let's say in the message key, I'm going to say okay, logging you in, that's the message. And for this one, I'll say session message error, email and password cannot be empty. Okay, so I do that. Missing a semicolon over here, so I save it. Let me do a word wrap. Okay, and let's just see if that worked. Okay, I'm going to var dump the session. So you'll see that as I write each line of code, I don't write everything and I test it. I do one thing and I test it, and then I build another one and I test it. And you should be doing the same thing. So it says logging you in because I have some information. Let's make it empty, and it says message error email password cannot be empty. So now that I store this information in session, I want to pass it back to exercise.php. So there is a function called header, I believe location, and I'm going to say go back to exercise.php. Okay, so I do that, and then in exercise.php I'm going to be using a PHP function, and in exercise.php I also need to utilize a session. So I'm going to say session start, and here let's just var dump. Okay, one line at a time. So we're just going to var dump session to see if that information got passed, and we'll just stop the code there. We'll do die. Okay, so let's go back to this one. Exercise.php. Oh, okay, yeah, okay. Let's not have it die yet. Okay. Okay, so I'm putting the email address, let's say mchoi@village88.com, password 123, login. It came back to exercise.php. It changed, the session, and it passed the, session variable back. What would happen if I don't do session start? Okay, if I don't do session start, it says it wasn't defined because I, didn't do session start. Okay, all right, so obviously, when I submit information, it goes to process.php. It takes it, it stores some information in a session variable, the special, $session variable. It goes back to exercise.php, and I still have access to that session variable. Okay, so one thing that I'm going to do is I'm just going to check if the session, what is it called, message, is set. Then we'll say over here echo the actual message. Okay, and maybe we even put a nice division, class air something like this. Okay, let's see if that works. Alright, and let's stop the var dump, or let's just comment it out. Okay, it says logging you in. Okay, so let's go back. Okay, okay, so mchoi village88.com 123, it says logging you in. That was the message. If I put something empty and click on login, it says error, email and password cannot be empty. Now here's the thing. After the message has been displayed, let's say I want to unset, that value, or I want to get rid of the session. Then, if you want to get rid of all the information in the session, you do unset, and if that is unset, if it is set. Okay, or let's do this message. Okay, so okay, if it is set, then display the error, and after it has been displayed, unset it so that it's removed from the session. Okay, so that it doesn't keep displaying the message. Okay, so here, or if I go to exercise.php, it's not there. I put in the password, click on login, and it displays the error. Okay, displays the message. So I mean, I could have done some bad CSS and do like border 1 pixel solid red, and it would look like a real error message. Maybe put a little padding, 15 pixel. Okay, so notice how I'm passing information from exercise to process, and process is sending me, is directing me back to exercise.php, but some of the information is passed through sessions. Okay, so later you will see how we can use session to authenticate users and remember that the users are logged in, and we can pass back other information and make that information accessible throughout other pages. So let's just for fun, let us set a session here. So we'll say session testing, and we'll say hi. Okay, and then in exercise 2, I'm going to var dump the whole session. So what would happen if I go to exercise.php and then go to exercise2.php? Would that information still be available on exercise 2? Well, it's a little trick question. Let's see. I go to exercise.php. Okay. So obviously run this, and then I'm going to go to exercise 2. Okay, and it says undefined variable session. Of course, because I didn't start the session. I didn't tell exercise2.php that I also need to use a session. So I need to start a session. So if I do this, let's see what happens. I go here, and it says that it knew, that information was available also to exercise2.php because I stored it in the session. Okay, so think of session just as a bucket where when you put stuff there in that bucket, that information is available for all of the pages in your web application. So you can var dump session throughout the pages to see if it's storing the right information, but also because the session can be hacked, you don't want to save some of the sensitive information. You don't want to save credit card information or password information in the session. So it's usually used to just store whether the user logged in, store error messages and things like that. Okay, all right, sounds good.